I just had this random thought, and I think it's a struggle for many creators out there, especially if you are if you don't like to fit into one box, especially if you're a little bit rebellious and you don't really appreciate following the rules and you kind of want to do things your own way. For so long, oh my gosh, I feel like I pivoted infinite times in my own life, not just in my business, in my coaching business, but since I can remember. But specifically, this is for creators. Maybe you share online, you have a blog, you have a Substack, you have a podcast, you have a YouTube channel, you post on Instagram, you post some threads, and everyone tells you like the niche, right? Niche down. And there's logic in that. And I understand why that's going to help content creation and help you find your right people probably faster. But how does that work out for you? Because for me, trying to fit and pick the one niche, instead of speeding up things, it slowed me down so much because I wasn't built for that. So I tried to squeeze myself inside formulas and like narrow down the complexity, the many nuance, the many layers and many passions I have. Because if this is for you, this is gonna land for you, especially if you feel like you've been through so much, you've lived through so much, and you want to talk about it all because you feel it can help other people. You just don't want to speak always to the same thing over and over and over and over again. That was like my issue. So at first, I remember, at first I thought, all right, I'm a sensitive person, I'm an empath, and I could speak and I consider myself an artist. I like to paint. I use painting as a medium. I actually used painting, abstract painting as a medium to find my voice. And it helps me like journaling could help someone else to piece together thoughts and make sense of things. And if you're a creative, and I do believe we're all artists, some people just haven't tapped into their own artistry, their own gifts yet. We're all artists. So when you have, like at first, I thought, okay, so maybe it's highly sensitive people. And I started crafting and arranging my language, website, copy, Instagram, everything around that. And then it was people, women with burnout and exhaustion. And then it was women who do it all and don't allow support in. And can you see how, and all of those were older version of me and still present somehow because growth is never linear. But can you see how that could still be one person? All of those nuances of like in language could still speak to one person. And chances are that one person is going to have a lot in common with me because she resonates with all of it. So every time, and this was my cue that I needed to stop just fitting or trying to pick one lane or pick one woman to speak to, pick one message, only one thing that could easily fit into a box and I could explain it in one sentence, like the famous elevator pitch. I cannot do that. So for me, the cue that this wasn't my way was that every time I picked, okay, now it's highly sensitive women. Let's create offers around that. Let's craft my coaching packages around that, my Instagram messaging around that, my blog posts around that. And at first, it felt exciting because, of course, I've lived through that. I'm still very sensitive, to so many things like animals hurting, the planet, the earth hurting, and other empaths and people who don't have a voice, beings who don't have a voice, the voice, and we are, it's our responsibility to give them voice and advocate for them. And can see how that, yeah, that hits for me. And I always got excited at first, but then it got to a point where I started to veer off that one lane because I wanted to speak also to the exhaustion, also to the being highly creative, also to receiving more, also to all these different things. And it felt awful because I was like, okay, but then it's not gonna speak to the highly sensitive ones. So every time I picked one new niche, I had to pivot everything again, and it was exhausting. And even if at first it felt exciting, after a while, I started to run out of ideas. Coming up with new ideas, coming up with content that fit that one box was torture. It didn't feel, after a while, it didn't feel natural. So I was like, okay, so what do I do? And here's what I want to offer. Find the one thing, find, or rather, there might be more than one, the thread that is the undertone of your life, the current of your life, the recurring, the thread that connects all the different kind of people you could potentially support and help, all the different people that you want to call into your life that speak, that resonate, that connect all your life experiences somehow. And that could take a while, and that's okay. Actually, I think going through all like the grueling process of one niche and then another was necessary for me to eventually realize, okay, this is my thread. And my thread was courage and reinvention in people who have pivoted an infinite amount of times and are still here starting over and having many passions and following your calling and building the life you know you're meant for, the life you know you're meant to be living, building that bigger life. That is my recurring, like, that is the thing, that is my fire. That is the thing that has moved me and pushed me from country to the other, from one country to the other part of the world, from pivoting careers, leaving safe corporate jobs. That is the one, that is my North Star. Find the one thing that it's the light at the end of the tunnel and that kept you moving through all the experiences you've been going through. Find that thread, and potentially that can become the core of your message. And from there, of course, you can speak to all the different layers and nuances, but content creation is going to feel so much easier. It's going to flow. And also, once you tap into that one thing, into that thread, you have endless ways to speak about it from all those different perspectives. So everything is going to feel more effortless. Everything is going to flow more. And that was my cue of, this is my thing. Reinvention, outgrowing, and going through the process of fear, but taking the leap. And that includes people who are sensitive. That includes people who are mission led, are heart led. That includes empaths, people who care about the planet and animals and humans and all beings as I do. So, no worksheet And no, probably no journaling could have ever brought me to this realization. It wasn't the way, but the way was less glamorous and less structured, but certainly I got here. And now it feels like I could talk about it forever. I could talk about it, like find the thing that you are excited to talk about, and you could talk about for hours, and you can weave in all different experiences from your own life, because that's going to be the magnet. That's going to be what brings your tribe to you, because that is also what makes you unique. I hope you find it. And I hope this message empowers you to trust your own way. Trust your own way and be like a detective. Spot the underlying thread that connects everything you've been through, all your gifts, your choices, and what keeps calling you forward. There are themes. Pay attention, because the breadcrumbs are there. They're already there. All right. If you don't know, I'm Marina, and I'm on a daily YouTube video journey. I make videos every day, and I'm here to remind you that you have a calling, and that calling is tapping on your shoulder. It has been tapping on your shoulder, and you're ready. You're already ready. And if you want to dive in, if you want support in building your bigger life, check out the description box below. There's resources to dive deeper, work together, and I will see you in the next video.